I want you to picture something with me. A young man, 22 years old, who 6 months ago was finishing university. He was making his family proud. He was full of plans. And today, he's sitting in his room at home, convinced that the people on the television are sending him coded messages. He's convinced that his food is being tampered with. He's convinced that something enormous and sinister is happening just beneath the surface of ordinary life, and that he is at the center of it. He's not performing, he's not seeking attention, he's not doing this to hurt his family. He's terrified, and he's completely alone inside an experience that no one around him can enter or fully understand. His family is also terrified. They do not know what they are looking at. They have never seen anything like that before. And the frameworks available to them, everything they have been given by their culture, their community, their faith, none of it has prepared them for this moment. What this young man has is schizophrenia. Today, I want to tell you what it actually is. I want to tell you what is happening in the brain, what it looks like in real life, and what every family needs to know. My name is Esther Mark, and I'm the founder of the Philip Support Foundation. It is a non-profit mental health organization that is supporting individuals and families affected by schizophrenia and related conditions, with a particular focus on Black and African communities in Canada. Today's video is one of the most important ones we will publish on this channel, because before a family can support someone with schizophrenia, before a community can reduce its stigma around it, someone has to explain what it actually is. So let us start there. Let me tell you about Kofi. Kofi grew up in a Ghanaian Canadian family in Toronto. His parents immigrated in the 1990s. They built a life from nothing, and they raised 3 children with a particular combination of love and expectation that many of you will recognize. Education was everything. Reputation mattered, and mental illness, if it was discussed at all, was something that happened to other people who had not prayed enough. Kofi was the eldest, the one everyone was watching. When the changes began, in his second year of university, his family actually noticed, but they did not name what they were seeing. He seemed stressed, he was not sleeping, and his grades were slipping. They told themselves it was just the pressure of school. His mother cooked extra portions and sent them with his younger sister when she visited. By the time the beliefs became impossible to ignore, the conviction that his professors were conspiring against him, the certainty that his phone was being monitored, the refusal to eat food that he had not prepared himself, the family was in crisis. And the first response was not a doctor. It was a 3-day fast and prayer. It was a vigil that was organized by their church community. Kofi was taken to Nigeria the following summer, where a prophet spent 2 weeks conducting deliverance. He came back quieter, more withdrawn. The family believed it had worked, but it had not. The illness had progressed. 2 years after that, the first symptom appeared. Kofi was hospitalized for the first time. He was 24 years old. The psychiatrist told the family that with earlier intervention in those first months, when the changes had begun, his trajectory would have likely been different. I tell you Kofi's story not to assign blame to his family. They loved him completely. They did everything they knew how to do. The failure was not theirs. It was a failure of information, of access, of a community that had never been given the language to recognize what was right in front of them. That is the failure we are here to correct. So, what is schizophrenia, really? Schizophrenia is a serious chronic brain disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels, perceives reality, and relates to the world around them. It is not a split personality. It is not possession. It is not a reflection of character or intelligence or faith. It is a neurological condition that is rooted in the brain's chemistry and structure. In a brain affected by schizophrenia, dopamine becomes overactive in certain pathways, and this drives the positive symptoms of the illness, the hallucinations, the delusions, the disorganized thinking. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, that is the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and social behavior, becomes underactive. This drives the negative symptoms, the emotional flatness, the loss of motivation, the complete withdrawal from the world. Let me break down those symptoms clearly. Positive symptoms, things added to experience that should not be there. They include hallucinations, most commonly hearing voices that are completely real to the person experiencing them. Delusions, fixed, unshakable beliefs disconnected from shared reality. And disorganized thinking, where the person cannot hold a coherent conversation because their thoughts are fragmenting in real time. Negative symptoms, things taken away from experience, include emotional flatness, severe loss of motivation, social withdrawal, and anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from anything at all. And then there are cognitive symptoms, slow processing, poor working memory, difficulty concentrating, which are often the most disabling in daily life and are frequently mistaken for laziness or lack of intelligence. Schizophrenia affects approximately 1% of the global population. It most commonly emerges in the late teens and 20s, right at the threshold of adult life. And the most important clinical fact I want you to carry from this video is that early intervention changes outcomes dramatically. People who receive clinical support within the first episode of psychosis have significantly better long-term recovery trajectories. Every month of untreated psychosis causes measurable changes in the brain that make recovery harder. This is a reason for urgency. Know the early warning signs like social withdrawal, declining performance, unusual beliefs, changes in sleep, increasing suspicion. When you see all this, you need to act before the crisis arrives. Now, I need to speak specifically to the experience of Black and African families because our experience of this illness is shaped by forces that go beyond the clinical. In many of our communities, the symptoms of schizophrenia are almost universally read through a spiritual lens. Hearing voices is possession. Paranoia is spiritual attack. Disorganized behavior is evidence that someone has been visited by something dark. The response is the church, the mosque, the prophets, the traditional healer. I understand why, the spiritual interpretation is not stupidity. It is culture. It is history. It is a worldview that has sustained our communities through enormous suffering. And I'm not standing here to tell anyone to abandon their faith. But I am standing here to say that when spiritual intervention is the only intervention, when years pass in prayer circles while a brain condition that responds to clinical treatment goes untreated, people lose years they cannot get back. Families fracture in ways that take decades to repair. Research also shows that Black individuals in Canada are more likely to be referred to psychiatry through the criminal justice system than through a family doctor, more likely to receive a schizophrenia diagnosis than white counterparts presenting with identical symptoms, a disparity driven by unconscious bias, and less likely to be treated with the dignity every person in mental health crisis deserves. That system needs to change. And while we push for that change, we also equip our families to navigate it as it currently exists. Both of those things are part of this foundation's work. So, what does the family do when they recognize these signs in someone they love? First, seek clinical assessment as early as possible, not instead of your faith, not instead of your community, alongside them. A psychiatric evaluation does not close any doors, it actually opens them. Second, stop arguing with the delusion. When someone you love says something disconnected from reality, every instinct says, correct it. But the brain in a delusional state does not receive correction as help, it receives it as a threat. The person pulls further away, so instead, stay present. Acknowledge the feeling underneath the belief. Say, I can see you're frightened, or I'm not going anywhere. That is the response that keeps the door open. Third, get support for yourself. Every family member of someone with schizophrenia needs their own support. The grief, the confusion, the exhaustion, these do not resolve on their own. Therapy, peer support groups, psychoeducation, these are not luxuries, they are essential. 4, keep learning. Every piece of understanding you build about this illness reduces the power of fear and shame over your family's response to it. That is what this channel is for. I want to end by telling you what happened to Kofi. After his hospitalization at 24, he began a treatment plan that included antipsychotic medication and weekly therapy. His family, although initially resistant, eventually committed. They participated in a family psychoeducation program that gave them the language and tools they had never had. It was not a straight line. There were relapses. There were hard seasons. There were moments when the family wondered if they could keep going. But Kofi is now 31 years old. He lives independently. He works part-time. He has rebuilt relationships with his siblings that the illness had fractured. He manages his condition, not perfectly, not without effort, but with knowledge, with support, and with a family that finally understands what they are dealing with. That is what recovery looks like. Not the absence of the illness, the presence of the right support around it. Schizophrenia is not the end of a person's story, and it is not the end of your family's story. If this video helped you understand something you have been trying to make sense of, please share it. Put it in the group chat. Send it to the family member who needs it. Subscribe to this channel. We publish new content every week. And if you or someone you love needs clinical support, therapy, counseling, or guidance navigating a mental health diagnosis, visit us at www.thepsf.ca or book a session with us. We are ready for you. Thank you for watching and thank you for learning. Thank you also for caring enough to understand.